Welcome to another episode of Tamara Simon's Live Real Estate Power Chat. My guest today is someone all real estate agents with Call Reluctance should definitely get to know. He is co-founder of Phone Sales Secrets, author, and has coached some of the top real estate agents in North America. He also has conducted over 40,000 coaching sessions. I would say Mr. Wally Bressler knows a thing or two about owning the phone. Are you afraid to own the phone in your business? If so, then you don't want to miss today's episode. But as you know, first things first.
This is Tamara Simon's Live, where real estate agents from around the globe come together to grow, collaborate, and expand their business. Where we take our inspiring conversations and put them together to create dynamic connections. This is the Real Estate Power Chat.
Yay!
Here I am.
Yes, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So that the audience can get to know a little bit about Wally Bressler, because you have a really impressive resume there. Let's let them know just a little bit about you.
Sure. So I grew up in New Hampshire, and I graduated from high school in '86. I went to Hamilton College in 1986, and I graduated in 1990. It's in Central New York. I worked in the mutual fund industry from 91 to 98. And in 98, I got my real estate license. I was just sick of working in corporate America. I got connected with the right guy, the right training, and I sold 72 houses in my first 14 months in the business. And then I really enjoyed it. And then I had an opportunity to do some training and coaching for that team starting in 2001. And so I've been doing training and coaching since 2001. I saw you had Jay Kinder on one of your shows a while back. So I started working with Mike and Jay with their teams in 2006. And then they started NAEA coaching, Kinder Reese coaching in 08, and then NAEA in 2010. And I was with them until 2016. And then I've been, on my own pretty much since 2016. And about just under 2 years ago, I started Phone Sales Secrets, in addition to the coaching that I do to help real estate agents and entrepreneurs overcome, call reluctance, self-sabotage, and perfectionism and procrastination, all the other stuff that keeps people from having great, lives and businesses as salespeople and entrepreneurs. So that's, I live in McKinney, Texas. I have 4 amazing kids and 2 dogs who are running around here right now. So that's kind of what, those are the broad brush strokes. That's me in a nutshell.
There you go. There you go. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, you've had quite an extensive career, and you coach because I'm someone that has call reluctance. I've had it in, on and off my entire career. So let's talk about kind of what causes some of the call reluctance for agents or even anyone that's in sales.
Sure. 40% of seasoned salespeople and 80% of new salespeople suffer from some form of call reluctance. Okay, I've kind of broken it down into 2 categories. So the first one is more of a what to do, what to say, when to say it, how to say it thing, right? So I don't know what to say, I don't know when to say it, I don't know how to say it, I don't know the value. I don't know the value that I bring to the table. Yeah, I can really articulate things to people because I don't have everything connected in my head. But with some training, with some hopping on the phone, with some role playing, and finally getting it, you get it and you move on. So that call reluctance is usually short-lived for the people that are willing to dive in. The kind of call reluctance that I work with is really emotionally driven call reluctance, and meaning there's something that happened from the time they were born until the time they were 12 or 13 that created, basically triggered their fight or flight instinct, their parasympathetic nervous system. So something happened. It was a trauma. They were sexually, emotionally, physically abused, or they saw somebody die close to them, or a parent died, or some near-death experience, or I have clients who got lost at a carnival for 3 or 4 hours, something like that, something that triggered that fight or flight instinct, mostly flight. Could have been bullying. Bullying's terrible for our self-esteem. Lots of needs for acceptance. In fact, about 65% of salespeople have a very extreme need to be liked, not to want to be liked, but need to be liked, and they want to be liked so much that they're afraid to get on the phone because they don't want to not be liked. It could have been, they were teased. It could have been a hidden identity they created for themselves. Like, I grew up poor. No one told me I was poor, but I would look at how other kids were dressed. I would even look at the lunches that they had and the stuff they had in their lunch versus what I had. Then, you know, I really created a poverty consciousness for myself and started feeling like I wasn't good enough. Or, you know, it's programming from adults. You had parents that were alcoholics, or your parents got divorced and there was a step parent that treated you like crap. Or, you know, is Simon's your maiden name or your married name?
It's my married name.
What's your maiden name?
Frampton.
Yeah, so it would be like, you know, your mom sitting with you and saying, hey, nothing good ever happens with Frampton women. So just, you know, just stay away from guys. You know what? Nothing good happens with that. Or your dad comes in and says, you know, you're never going to make anything of yourself. You know, don't try and stick your head out there. So something happens along the way that triggers that fight or flight instinct, and people become runners and they start avoiding things. And, you know, our subconscious mind does most of the work for us every day. And, you know, it doesn't know the difference between, you know, what's real and what's not. So whatever we plant there is going to grow. And if you start at a very young age planting fear and doubt and lack of self-worth and lack of self-esteem and imposter syndromes, things like that, then every time something comes up that you avoid it or that scares you where you avoid it, it's like you're watering and weeding that little seedling, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing until you're an adult, and now it's this like ginormous sequoia tree that you can't even find your way around. And then, you know, you either get sweaty palms, sweaty pits, dry mouth, your heart starts beating, your head starts pounding, or you become the get ready person. My scripts aren't good. You know, I'm not dressed right. I don't know my presentation. You become more your perfectionist or your procrastinator or whatever. I don't like talking to people when they call me. You know, I don't want to sound robotic. I don't want to sound scripted. You know, all the excuses that people give. And what it really comes down to is that something triggered their low self-esteem in that area, not everywhere, but in that area of measuring up to people. They need to be liked, they need to be approved of, self-esteem, lack of self-worth, you know. And then what happens is these avoidance strategies get created. So, you know, I was addicted to sex, pornography, money, and food for 40 plus years. So those are my avoidance strategies. So when pain came up, when things triggered me and scared me, I'd go to those things, you know. And like, you know, T. Harv Eker is a Canadian personal development expert. He's like, you know, he calls it TFAR, thoughts, feelings, actions, results, right? And so we get triggered and there's a thought that happens and there's actually an emotion that comes up that we're supposed to pay attention to, right? But most of us don't pay attention, and we skip the emotion. We go right to action or inaction, right? You know, what does the song from Rush say? Free will. It says, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, right? So even inaction is a choice, and then you get a result. So what happens is I get triggered. You know, I got to call somebody. Fear of rejection comes, but instead of feeling the emotion and dealing with it, I procrastinate. I become a perfectionist. I go find those dishes that haven't been cleaned for 4 days and clean them. You know, I find every other thing under the sun to do to convince myself that I'm being busy, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm saying, and so that's what it's all about. It's this, it triggers something in people who have called. I had to call Reluctance for 10 years. I mean, I didn't get my real estate license until I was 30. I mean, I avoided it like the plague. So, but, you know, once that trigger happens, you know, we go right into avoidance of the emotions, and we go right into whatever that negative emotion does, and it takes root, and then it's just like, you know, it's like putting a needle in you and just goes throughout your entire body. So, and that's pretty much how it happens. And it's interesting because a lot of my clients, like, geez, I had no idea that, you know, my call reluctance or my perfectionism was due to the fact that I was made fun of in 5th grade for wearing dress shoes to gym class because I thought it was cool one day. Or, you know, one of the biggest things that people get call reluctance from, and they don't know, is that their parents never fought. They never saw their parents fight. And so they don't learn how to deal with conflict or confrontation or rejection, or they don't know how to work through either the feelings associated with that or actually how to do that. So there's people who, but they felt like a leave it to beaver childhood, which they probably did, but their parents didn't teach them how to deal with conflict or potential confrontation or feel confident enough that they could.
Right.
You know, and so something as simple as that happens. And then, you know, it goes from being this tiny little thing that we tend to in our entire life, and then it becomes a literal emotional obstacle for people.
Absolutely. And that makes so much sense. I mean, you say that, and it really makes the cogs turn in my brain. Going, oh, okay, that makes sense as to why, you know, there's probably reasons that I didn't pick up the phone. Mm-hmm. Or I found other things I needed to do versus pick up the phone.
Yeah. I mean, fear of rejection is perfectly normal, you know, but, you know, and this is kind of the difference, you know, this is how they explain the difference between successful people and either unsuccessful people or moderately successful people. It's that successful people, they push through the fear. They keep moving despite the fear. And by the way, anybody who's watching this now or watching it later, everybody who has called reluctance, your brain already started looking. As soon as I started describing what it was, everybody's brain will start looking. And I can see people when I'm talking to them, they kind of look at me, but they're not looking at me because it's like going up into the attic and opening boxes and go, I forgot all about this,
Yeah.
And so, but here's the great news is that, a lot of people cry when they find out because they're in so much pain, but it's also tears of happiness because they've identified what it is and now they can go to work. And there's a lot of hope that comes along with it because you can literally make it go away. But, you got to be willing to do the work, right? You can't just say, well, I found it and it's going to go away. You got to do the work. But, and so there's lots of people that have had tough childhoods or, even people that have had tough childhoods. But one little thing happened that turned in from literally a minimal observation to this huge thing. I have a buddy of mine, very successful real estate agent, super successful. And, he had some issues because the girl down the street that he liked found out that his parents rented their home and that she didn't. And said, you guys rent your home. There's that not good enough feeling when you're 6 and then you just, right? So anyway, basically, Tamara, that's the long and short of it, if that makes any sense.
It does. And in fact, I think that's one of your skills is you're out there making those of us that are in this industry self-aware versus self-conscious.
Yes, thank you.
That seems to be a great skill that you have. I've been watching you and going through because I've got all of your information here, and I'll make sure it's in the description so everyone can find you.
Thank you very much.
Because I've been doing this 18 years in real estate, and you always have times where it's tougher. It just, whatever life's throwing at you, because real estate's not an easy field. People think that it is, but it's actually a very tough career.
Yeah. Yeah. And, sorry, do you have something else to say? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
So really what it comes down to is emotional awareness, right? Emotional intelligence is super important. Emotional awareness is important. And, having an emotional awareness and emotional awareness that underpins, managing our emotions. Listen, I was an angry person growing up. I was angry. I was sad. I was depressed. Spent my entire life not liking myself until I was probably 2 years ago. And, when my dad died when I was 23, I thought about dying every day for about 25, 30 years, 25 years. And so 26 years. And so, and I was so angry that I would trigger like that. And I started fights in restaurants. I would knock tables over at banks. And when I couldn't get what I want, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", I play college football. You can tell I'm not a small guy. And, so I didn't take crap from anybody. I would say whatever I wanted, but when you get triggered emotionally very easily, not good. Right.
Yeah.
But even if it's triggered emotionally where you start crying, you get angry, or you get triggered emotionally and you run, none of that's helpful because, if you can just figure out how to manage your emotions, which is a lot easier than you would think, it takes practice, you're not you're not going to let those emotions creep in and keep you from doing what you need to do. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
You got to learn how to manage those. And here's the thing. This is how I kind of explain it to people. We're a kid. Our brains are like, deposit accounts with no ability, like a CD, right? You can put money in, you just can't take it out. So we get all these thought processes and emotions and belief systems dumped into our head. We've got no way to differentiate between what's healthy and what's not. We have no strategy to keep the negative emotions from coming in. We have no strategy to take the negative and stinking thinking out. So you figure you got 12, 13, at least 14 years of your life where you are getting all kinds of stuff dumped into your head and you're just letting it run around and do whatever it's going to do. Right. And by that time, your brain, like who you are, is mostly formed. So now you're processing everything with that for the rest of your life until you do what I do, is rock bottom. Literally like wanting to put a gun in my mouth, like rock bottom, thinking about how I'm going to die, or you get to the point where you lose everything. It's just, I don't want that to happen for people. So that's kind of why I do what I do. But that's what it's all about is identifying what caused it and then dealing with it. But a lot of us never even given the skill set or the understanding of how to do that.
Yeah. And I think that's, something that's vastly needed. This is something that I don't think most people are aware of, that there's more to you not picking up the phone. There's more to you not reaching out, even in person. I mean, it doesn't necessarily even have to be on the phone. It's just most people wouldn't even walk up to someone and introduce themselves.
Yep. Networking meetings, you know, and I mean, are you in EXP? Yeah.
I am.
So, you know, EXP, you know, the goose that laid the golden egg is a revenue share group.
Yeah.
You know, for a lot of people, there's no difference between prospecting for opportunities and calling to be able to build their rev share group. In fact, I know people that would rather talk to somebody they don't know rather than somebody they do know, for that fear of not being accepted or not be approved of or letting somebody down.
Absolutely.
Right. And so, you know, and it's the same problem. And if I can extrapolate this a little bit, Tamara, the same thing that keeps people from getting on the phone is the same thing that keeps people from keeping a calendar, is the same thing that keeps people from reaching their goals, is the same thing that keeps people from keeping a diet, is the same thing that keeps people from going to the gym. Anything that requires consistency is usually going to be impacted negatively when you have unresolved emotional issues that put you in a position where you lack self-esteem, lack self-worth, believe you're not good enough. Pretty much, you know, and so, and it spills into all of those areas, you know. And listen, here's the thing, it's not your fault. That's the whole thing, and that's the first thing I tell them, like, it's not your fault. You know, seriously, it's not. I mean, you know, no one knows how to make sense of being sexually abused when they're 10. I mean, our little emotions and hearts and brains can't figure that out, you know. And I think I'm older than you, I may not be, but, you know, they weren't talking about sexual abuse and child abuse in 1960s and 70s. They weren't talking about that. My parents never said to me, hey, don't let anybody touch your body, or you don't touch anybody else's body. They never said, hey, if anybody ever touches you, let us know. They never said that, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I didn't tell my mother until I was 40-something, 30, 40-something. Yeah. And I got a very, oh, that family sucks. And that was it. So, because parents don't want to deal with it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, they're 60s by now, but the whole point is, you know, it's not your fault. But, you know, and Zig, you know, sorry, you know, Will Ferrell, I play all my clients' video from Will Ferrell. It's called Fault versus Responsibility. He's like, it's not your fault that you had a drunk father, an abusive parent, or, you know, that someone did something to you with your kid, but it is your responsibility to fix it. And, you know, I believe in God. I'm a Christian. I pray, I read the Bible, try to live as good a Christian life as I can. And I've prayed my entire life to not be fat. And, you know, he put me in a lot of situations to not be fat, but still up to me, you know? Yeah. So
that was my big hurdle. You know, and now that you say that, if I think back on, you know, reasons I didn't reach out, I wasn't the perfect fit. I wasn't the most beautiful, you know, and therefore those things held me back from reaching out. You know, you just saying that is like the light goes off.
Yeah. And you know, it's oddly enough, I mean, you know, you said something interesting about how people become self-aware without being self-conscious. I think part of that is, you know, because of what I went through in my story and my ability to empathize with people, my willingness to. But I've really, after coaching for 22 years, I know the right questions to ask. Right. And, you know, your brain remembers everything you've ever seen, tasted, touched, smelled, or heard. It remembers all of it. Most of it's like a sandwich. And if you've been doing a good job, you've been pushing it down, you know, but eventually it's got to come up because your brain's like, nope, sorry. My job is to make this go away. So we're going to make it go away. So, and so what happens is you hear about all these, sorry about that. I see a hair sticking out. Sorry. So, you know, everybody's freaking out about COVID. They say COVID, it did this, it did that to me. COVID didn't really, I mean, it traumatized some people because they got sick or they lost somebody. But for the most part, the trauma of COVID literally like ripped the lid off of whatever they were using to hold down all that other stuff was unresolved. Yeah. Right. So, you know, I know people, you know, they're alcoholics, but they don't drink for a period of time. And then something bad happens and they go on a bender. Or I would, you know, I was on The Biggest Loser. I lost 116 pounds in, I don't know, 5 months, something like that, 6 months. Right. And then the night of the weigh-in, I weighed in before the finale on NBC. And literally the minute I stepped off the scale, I borrowed somebody's car and I drove to In-N-Out Burger at LAX. And I had 2 double doughs of cheese and 2 Cokes. And that was it. I gained all the weight back and then some in a year. You know, and so when, right, because we're holding the lid down and when the lid's like, oh, I can eat, yay. Yeah. You know, when your natural programming comes back. So, you know, but even you know what I'm saying? You just said something. I mean, you basically convinced yourself, I'm guessing my hallucination is you convince yourself along the way somewhere that because you were not maybe the best looking or the smartest or whatever, that, that leads to need for acceptance, need for approval, feeling of rejection. And you know what? Who wants to feel that? I'm just going to avoid it.
Yeah.
When the fact of the matter is, only 2 people need to think you're beautiful, and that's you and the person you're married to. Yeah. Everybody else can go pound sand,
Exactly.
We're all good enough the way we are, right? And I tell my kids this all the time. Like, you don't need to be taller, shorter, heavier, skinnier, wealthier, poorer, anything. You're good enough just the way that you are, and you're worthy of every good thing that could happen to you. And there's nothing you could do ever to earn somebody's love, appreciation, approval, acceptance, or anything like that. Not a thing, right? Because you can't affect that. You can't impact that. All you need to make sure is you prove yourself, that you love yourself, and that you accept you for you are. If you can just do those 3 things, which takes some work, it's a game changer.
Absolutely. Now, going into, our shifting market that we're going into, we have agents that are now going to have to go back to the basics and actually pick up the phone. I mean, that's literally what we're going to have to start doing if we're going to stay in top of the market. What are some suggestions that you would give? What are some suggestions you would give those?
It's funny. I actually spent an hour today talking about building a pipeline with prospecting on my own page. So, it'll be on the page. If you want to go to my page, I'm not trying to get people to go to my page, but you go to my page that Tamara was so nice enough to put there. There's a recording from today. But look, if you want to be successful, part of it, and I hate to say this because I don't want the perfectionists to get hooked up on the plan part. You got to have a plan, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't have to have a plan that it needs to be implemented, right? You need to know who you're calling. You need to call them at the right times. You need to know what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and then you got to do it over and over and over again. Right. Look, there's tons of free lead sources out there. You can go to, you can go to Zillow, you can get FSBOs until they, fall off the tree now. Right. You can get buyer leads through Facebook. If you're an EXP, they got squeeze pages, they got landing pages. You can generate leads there. You can get expireds. Mojo sells the Red X, Vulcan 7, all between $250 and $350 a month. Not ridiculously expensive. You got your past clients, your sphere. And I keep saying, I apologize. I'm just checking in, I guess. But the whole point is there's lots of low cost and no cost lead sources that people can jump on. It's pretty simple in a market like this. I was fortunate to coach during the Great Recession. In a market like this, you're going to have to make 20 contacts, get an appointment with buyers, and probably 60 contacts to get an appointment with sellers. And you have to make at least a minimum of 60 contact attempts.
Absolutely.
You're going to, and here's the thing, studies have shown that 44% of salespeople jump at the first sign of resistance on a sales call. So almost half the people out there. So if you are willing to make the calls, you got a good shot at getting the business, right? NAR says that if you are the first person to contact a buyer or seller, you got like an 80% chance of getting them to do business with you. Most real estate agents make 1 to 2 calls. The fat middle is 6 to 8, could be as high as 18 contact attempts. So, if you are willing to do the work, it's going to happen, but you got to put in. Gary Keller and Schiff said, hey, 21 hours of prospecting a week. I think with the advent of dialers, you can get away with 16, which is 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday in the morning, 2 hours at night, Tuesday and Thursday, 2 hours on Saturday, and then at least 1 open house a weekend. And then if you want to weave in another, 4 to 5 contacts per day to past clients in Sphere, even if you're leaving messages, I think that's more than ample for people. Right?
Absolutely.
And then just, you call 1 lead source at a time. You call your buyer leads, then you call your expireds, then you call your FSBOs, and you call your past clients. And the reason you do that is your brain will aid you in being more successful by being more consistent with specific lead sources rather than bouncing back and forth. It's the same part of your brain that helps with muscle memory for baseball, basketball, dancing, whatever it is. It does the same thing for cerebral activity. So, but you got to have a plan. You got to be a place to prospect. You got to get on the phone. You got to get your teeth kicked in every once in a while. You got to role play, and then you should be calling, like I said, at those time frames. Have your leads set up. Have your scripts there. Role play in between. When I first got into the business, we got our leads on a piece of paper. Right? The guy I worked with, he would get the leads. We had phone trees back then. Right? You dial in and put in a 4-digit number, and then we'd give you the ad for the house, and then they would have to leave their name and phone number. Yep. So he would sit down and he would take it and then cut the slips of paper. We went to the bank and got the bank badge they used to carry money in, So we put our leads in there to represent money, and then we get them on paper, and we would just call. And so, the guy that I started with, known him for a long time, he was the brother-in-law of the guy who we worked with, and we literally would sit there in the conference room for 3-4 hours a day, and one of us would dial till we picked up. We would talk. we'd see the person on speaker after the call was over. We laugh, we joke around, and he would do it. We just go back and forth and back and forth. You know, find somebody. And an interesting point, Tamara, that I want to point out: the reason that people don't want to be held accountable is also a self-esteem issue, because they don't want to be thought to be they don't want to be thought of as being less than. They don't want to be thought of as good, not good enough. They don't want to let people down. Okay, I got some news for you if you're paying attention here. You can't let anybody down. Okay, I mean, it's their choice. You can't stop anybody from feeling let down about something. It's going to be their choice. But guess what? It has nothing to do with you. Somebody being let down. Oh, if you say you're going to do something, you don't do it. Yeah, right. But by putting your best effort forward and doing everything you can and not having a good call day, you're not letting anybody down, not even yourself, because you tried. So worrying about letting somebody down is literally like stinking thinking. It's fake news, because it's not up to you to let somebody down or not. I'm saying it's their choice and it's their feelings and it's based on how they feel and has nothing to do with you. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I went a little quickly, but in summary, have a plan, have your leads, have scripts, have non-negotiable times in your calendar, find somebody to call with, and just do it over and over and over again. And the byproduct of you doing it regularly is that you're better on the phone and you'll need to talk to fewer people to get better results.
Absolutely. I remember when I was working in the office before. This was years ago, but we used to smile, dial, and make a pile. I mean, that was the thing. Is get up, stand up, smile, start your calls, and because that changed your whole outlook when you would do that.
Yep. And people are so worried about what other people are thinking about them. That's some bad news. They're not thinking about you at all. You're not even on like 1,000 on their list. You know what I'm saying? They're not, and they don't know you. I kind of liken it to this. I mean, when's the last time if you're from the Northeast like I am, everybody drives like a maniac, including yours truly. I mean, there's no such thing as defensive driving in the Northeast. It's all offensive driving, literally offensive driving. But, you cut somebody off, even if you don't mean to, they drive by, they give you the finger, right? I mean, unless you're completely off the reservation, crispy around the edges, crazy, you're like, oh. Or you're like, yeah, you're too, right? But you know what I'm saying? But, you don't follow them home. What were you thinking about me? Why do you say that? No, you're like, move on.
Yeah.
Right? And a phone call is not unlike that. It's a very limited interaction with somebody who, even if they said F you to you, would be the same thing. You wouldn't like, I got your phone number. I'm going to do reverse lookup. I'm going to come to your house and beat you up, right? It's the same thing. So, but it's all funnels down to, managing your emotions. But you're right. Smiling, dialing, it's going to create a pile if you do it.
Absolutely. I heard a great quote the other day. It says, everything you want is on the other side of a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so if you that gives you a different outlook on making that call.
Mm-hmm. It does. But, to your point, most of the people that focus on call reluctance and overcoming call reluctance have a very tactical strategy to overcome it, right? It's all about doing the right things in the right order and how you think about things and what to say, when to say it, right. Accountability partners, learn your scripts and dialogues, create confidence around doing, okay?
Right.
Mine's about create confidence around thinking and the strategies you have to go through to get over what's keeping you from doing that. That's like me teaching you how to frost a cake before I teach you how to bake a cake.
Right.
Right? Hey, here's how you frost a cake. Okay, good. We'll talk to you later. But wait, I don't know how to make a cake. So we got to go and solve the problem to open up I don't even know what it is. Open up the doors to the vault where you've been keeping all this crap down, to open up the doors to the vault so you can let all that junk out so you can finally see the real you and believe in you and be willing to do it. You know? And then once you've cleared that space, then you can spend time on the tactical, the syntax of being good on the phone and being successful. But I can jump up and down all day and tell you there's so many contacts you have to make, dials, nurtures, appointments, follow-ups, using the Ford technique, everything. I mean, I can give you, and tons of sales trainers, people can give you till they're blue in the face, every tactic that you could possibly employ to being successful on the phone. But if I put a phone in your hand and you turn to stone, all useless.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but nobody's stuck the way they are, Tamara. It's available to everybody. Everybody. You know what I'm saying? If you have trouble getting on the phone, if you have trouble sticking to a calendar, if you go like this with your business, it's something that can be fixed if you're willing to do the work.
I think that's something that we don't look at. We don't we don't realize that there could be an actual reason why we don't do some of the things that we know we should be doing.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason, though. You know, people, like, talking to a few people lately who joined my class are like, I'm stuck. And basically what that means is like, at some point your brain's like, okay, we got to deal with this. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, you're 40 years old, you're 50 years old. I mean, that's what happened to me. I mean, I was literally in so much pain that I could not move, not physical pain, but emotional pain. I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, I was doing my business. I was getting up in the morning, literally 5 minutes before calls. I didn't do any of my calls on Skype. You know what I'm saying? I ballooned to like 440 pounds. It's huge. And then when my calls were over, I would go right to bed. I didn't care if it was 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, you know, and I was in bed the entire day. And I remember laying in bed and looking at the ceiling, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. Right? And the more failure your brain gets with unresolved crap, and the more time we spend looking at what we're running away from, there's no space to get excited about the future. There's no space to figure out how to solve problems, right? We get stuck.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck, you need to go get some help. Because unfortunately, we can't get ourselves unstuck.
So true. Now, to bring up, I'm really excited. I actually ordered your book.
Oh,
it's supposed to be here tomorrow, and I'm really excited to read this. Tragic hero picking up the pieces. So I want you to, you know, talk about this book, because I think there's going to be some things in here everyone needs to learn from.
Yeah, you know, and thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you bought the book. Thank you. I mean, I really appreciate it. You know, it was funny. I was telling the story earlier today. Well, not funny. It's ironic, peculiar, not funny. You know, when you grow up with so much shame and so much guilt and all the terrible, not even just the things that happened, but all the terrible things I did. I hurt so many people in my life, you know, my ex-wife, my children, my family, you know, my mother, and it's in the book. I mean, you know, I was doing some real estate investing in 2005 and 2006 and was working with somebody who was a loan originator. You know, he knew all about the mortgage side of the business. And he's like, hey, let's go help people keep their houses. They're losing their house. He said, we'll just buy their house from them. We'll let them stay there. We'll give them money to pay off their debts. And then we'll give them money back to buy their homes back. Seemed plausible. He took care of all the money and the mortgages, and he needed investors with good credit. And we needed investors with good credit. And so my mother did it. And then the whole thing fell apart, and he started spending money on things he shouldn't have been spending money on. And then people weren't paying rent, and they lost their houses. And then I get a call from him and says, hey, the FBI wants to talk to us. Okay. And then I was in 2008, but everything fell apart. And, you know, my mother on her deathbed earlier in 2008, June 2008, I was looking at her and I'm like, I'm sorry the way things turned out. And, you know, I wish she would forgive me. And she didn't forgive me. And she died the next day. Like, it was those kind of things that I did that hurt a lot of people, you know. And so, and that's 100% my fault. You know what I'm saying? I went to prison because I wasn't paying attention and I overlooked things, and I signed paperwork without paying attention. So, you know, I got what I deserved. And so, but the whole point is that I built up so much pain of just horrible, terrible decisions and self-sabotage after self-sabotage and hurt after hurt that I was literally sitting on my couch after a session with my coach, my therapist, Kelly. And I was like, you know what? I can't live like this anymore. And I went on Facebook and I just did a live and told my entire story. And then I went on to another Facebook page. And then I went to Instagram and I just unloaded it, you know, because believe it or not, you know, telling people all the things, I'm not suggesting everybody go and, you know, dump their dirty laundry on Facebook. I'm not saying that, but telling the stuff that you're ashamed of or that, you know, you're disappointed in yourself for really takes all the power away. Hey, Wally, you were in prison. You went to prison. You're a convicted felon. I am. You know, you let your children down. I did. You've blown $5 million. I absolutely did. You cheated on your wife 4 times. Yep. Guilty as charged, you know. But, you know, and writing the book was cathartic because I got to basically really talk about the details. But basically, and I'm sorry to take such a long route to answering your question, but, you know, basically it's part memoir, part personal development. It's like all the stuff that I went through, all the terrible stuff that I did because of dealing of what I went through. And then, you know, how I overcame it and how other people can overcome it too. And the people who have read the book that have gotten back to me, they're like, God, I felt like I was reading a book about my own childhood. You know, or they feel like I totally get it. You know, I'm saying this, I see this, you know. So, I mean, I wrote it to get it out there, but I also wrote it because I know a lot of other people have gone through what I've gone through. And I, you know, my besides being the best father for my children and making sure that they don't ever have to deal with anything I had to deal with as a child or into adulthood, besides that, you know, my goal here is to make sure nobody goes another day not living a happy and joyful and fulfilled life. I don't want anybody, you know, I went 45 years. I mean, literally 45 years of not being happy one day.
Yeah.
Not liking myself one day. You know, I don't want anybody to have to do that anymore. So that's the other reason I wrote the book.
I'm just really excited. I'm a huge reader, and so when I see something that I'm like, okay, I can grasp onto this, and the more I watch you and get to know what it is that you do, and when you share your story, it's definitely something I wanted to grab a hold of.
I appreciate that. I'm really excited you grabbed it. I'd love to hear what you think about it, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I beta author for other readers as well, and so I will definitely make sure that once I read it, I'll review it as well, because I know those are extremely important.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Now, going back to Phone Sales Secrets, I know that you offer a 15-minute consult for those. You want to tell them about that?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, a lot of people are like, I don't know why I keep doing what I'm doing. I don't know why I keep doing what I'm doing. Why do I keep, you know, making calls and then not make calls? Why can I not get consistent money? Why do I sabotage this? Why am I, you know, I'm saying why, you know, I'm like, all right, well, you know what? If we get on the phone for 15 minutes, I can help you find out why. And that alone really gets the ball rolling for people. You know, I don't sell anything on that call unless they want to. You know, I'm like, hey, do you want to know about what I do or not? And most people are like, yes. And I'm like, okay. All right, it's not a sales call. It's a, hey, let's talk and let me help you get clear on why you're doing what you're doing. And if you don't do something about it, it's not going to go away. But at least you now know the battle that you're fighting. And again, the sense of hope that people get and the sense of finally understanding why they do what they do is a huge relief to them. And then, you know, if they're ready to do the work, they do it. And if they're not, then they don't. And I'm not going to twist arms. You know, you want to talk about it? Great. I'll talk about it. I'll tell you what we do. If not, no problem. But at the very least, I'm going to help you leave with a much better understanding of why you're doing what you're doing in your life to keep you from living the life and creating the business you want for yourself.
Wonderful. And they can get that at the phonesalesecrets.com, right?
Yep. They can go there and click on a button to get a free 15-minute session. Goes right in my calendar. We do a Zoom call, and then we talk, and everything people say to me stays with me. You can't coach in the real estate business or any business for 22 years and have loose lips. So everything stays with me. I don't talk about other people.
That's wonderful. You know, I really appreciate your time today. And I'm so glad that you were able to come on here and share your story, as well as let people know what it is that you do and how you can help them.
Yeah, this is amazing. When you reached out to me, I was so honored and flattered, and I really, really appreciate it. And if there's anything I can ever do for you, your audience, let me know.
Well, we'll make sure that we have all of your contact information attached to my post and on my YouTube channel as well, so that they can reach out to you and know where to find you. And awesome. Then I know you're busy, and I just, is there anything that you'd like to share before we end this today?
Mm-hmm. It's time to let things that you've been letting take space in your brain go, right? People that beat you up, abuse you, physically abuse you, emotionally abuse you, whatever, like parents that weren't good to you, elders that weren't good to you, older siblings that weren't good to you. It's like time to not let them take space in your brain, like you're just robbing yourself of happiness and the opportunity to do what you need to do. And again, unfortunately, it's not going to go away if you don't take care of it. And there is a way to take care of it. I'm not the only solution, but there's a way to take care of it, to make it go away for good. So, if you're willing to do the work and you're ready, let's at least talk, and let me at least help you get some pinpointed, and then you can figure out what you want to do from there. But just don't sit there and take it, because it's not going to go away, and it's just going to get worse. Take it from me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Wally. I appreciate it. And anyone that, this resonates with, reach out to Wally. He'll take good care of you.
Thank you.
Until next time, we'll see y'all on another round of the Real Estate Power Chat. Have a great day, Wally.
Thanks. See you later. Bye.